What's up with it? You watching the Bay Bomber TV. And yeah, we about to check out this video from the YouTube channel Rap Dynasty. And the title was at 36 years old, Black Youngster life is more tragic than you think. Yeah, man, I'm so cool with it, man. I can imagine it's pretty tragic, man, how he lost his brothers, man, for real, though. Yeah, man, for his Black Youngster situation, though, man, it seems like it's a lot of lessons to be learned from his story, man, for real, though. But yeah, man, I haven't checked out the video. Don't completely know what they talking about, but let's check it out and see what they talking about.
Y'all need to hear this, because this story right here, this ain't just about rap beef. This ain't just about somebody's career going cold. This is about a man who made every single wrong move at every single right moment and then had to stand in the wreckage wondering how it all fell apart. We're talking about Black Youngsta, Sammy Benson, South Memphis, born and raised. A dude who came from literally nothing, clawed his way up from the gutter, made millions, built a label, had a whole city behind him, and then in what felt like the blink of an eye, watched all of it crumble. But here's the thing that makes this story different from your typical rapper fell-off narrative. This ain't just about the music drying up. It ain't about a bad album rollout or the streams falling. Nah, fam. Black Youngsta's downfall is tied to something way deeper. It's tied to loyalty. It's tied to a murder. It's tied to the streets of Memphis finally collecting what they were owed. And the crazy part, he saw it coming. Every single sign was there, and he still walked right into it. Let me break it down for you, because the real tea on Black Youngsta is something the blog's been tiptoeing around for years, and today we're putting it all on the table. To understand how we got here, we need to go back to the beginning, all the way back to South Memphis, one of the most violent, most underserved neighborhoods in the entire country. This is a zip code that doesn't make the news when people are doing good. It only makes the news when somebody's dead. Sammy Benson grew up in that environment. No silver spoon. No industry connections, no famous cousin who could open a door, just the streets, the hustle, and a voice that sounded like gravel and ambition mixed together. He started dropping music as early as 2012, releasing his debut mixtape Fast Bricks, and then Fast Bricks 2, and Fast Bricks 3. No major label, no cosign, just pure output, grinding the way Memphis rappers do, flooding the streets with tape after tape until somebody paid attention. And somebody did pay attention. In 2015, Youngsta dropped a record called Heavy. Now, if you haven't heard Heavy, go look it up. That song hits like a freight train. It's got this raw, unfiltered energy. The kind of record that makes you feel like you're riding through the hood at 2 a.m. with nowhere to be and no reason to be scared. Yo Gotti heard that record and immediately reached out. Within months, Black Youngsta was signed to Collective Music Group, CMG, one of the most powerful rap labels out of Memphis. Just like that, fam. From grinding with no budget to signing with one of the city's biggest names. That's the American Dream Street Edition. And Youngsta ran with it. He dropped I Swear to God in 2015, Baby Jesus in 2016, Shake Some. He was prolific, he was consistent, and he had this undeniable authenticity that people gravitated toward. The man didn't pretend to be something he wasn't. He was South Memphis, period, and South Memphis loved him back. By 2017, he founded his own imprint, Heavy Camp, right there under the CMG umbrella. He was building, he was stacking, he had positioning within one of rap's most powerful label structures, and the future looked nothing but bright. But that's just the beginning. Because around the same time Youngsta was on his rise, a war was brewing in Memphis. And whether he wanted to or not, Black Youngsta was about to become the face of one side of it. Now this is where it gets crazy, and y'all need context here, because without understanding this beef, none of what comes after makes sense. Around 2014, a Memphis rapper named Young Dolph was making serious noise. Born Adolph Thornton Jr. in Chicago, but raised in Memphis, Dolph had built his own lane completely independent. No label, no cosign, just paper route empire, his own imprint, his own movement. Yo Gotti tried to sign him. Dolph said no, and that no planted a seed of tension that would eventually grow into something monstrous. Fast forward to
I ain't gonna lie, man. This situation is super weird, man. How you gonna get mad at somebody because they turned down your offer, man? For real.
2016. Dolph releases his debut studio album and calls it King of Memphis. Now on the surface, that's just a title. But in the streets of Memphis, where claiming that crown means something, to Gotti and his camp, that title read like a direct challenge. Like Dolph was standing in Gotti's living room, looking him dead in the eyes and saying, "You're not what you think you are." That's when Black Youngsta stepped forward. On March 2nd, 2016, Youngsta posted a video on Instagram going straight at Young Dolph, called him soft, questioned his street credibility, said he wasn't even from Memphis. And then, and this is the part that separated this from regular rap beef, Youngsta physically showed up in Dolph's neighborhood, South Memphis, armed, with his crew, filming the whole thing like he was daring Dolph to come outside. That ain't internet beef, gang, that's a declaration. He dropped a diss track called Shake Some shortly after. Bars talking about Mac 11S, extended clips 100 rounds, telling Dolph to lay low, calling him a fraud in his own city.
I ain't gonna lie, pulling up to somebody's hood like that, man, that's the ultimate disrespect, man. And to be honest, man, your hood should feel disrespected too, for real.
The song had energy, no cap, but it also escalated something that was already dangerously hot. Then came February 2017. Here's where it gets real. Dolph was in Charlotte, North Carolina for a performance connected to a college basketball tournament. On February 25th, his vehicle, while he was inside, was hit by gunfire. Over 100 rounds were fired into that car, fam. 100 rounds.
Several months ago in North Carolina, Young Dolph's SUV was shot at 100 times, but he wasn't in it. Witnesses heard the shots here in Hollywood, and nearby security video captured a person running from an SUV.
The only reason Young Dolph is not dead that day is because his vehicle was bulletproof. Black Youngsta, along with 2 other men, was arrested in connection with the shooting. The charges, 6 felony counts of discharging a weapon into occupied property plus conspiracy. That is a serious, life-altering charge. And this is where the story gets complicated. The charges were eventually dropped.
Earlier this year, 100 bullets were fired into Young Dolph's SUV, and 3 months later, police have pinned Memphis rapper Black Youngsta for his alleged involvement. Authorities have revealed that the van used to shoot up Dolph's bulletproof SUV in February was rented by Youngsta, whose associates later turned themselves over to the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office, where they were then charged with 6 counts each of discharging a weapon into occupied property and felony conspiracy.
The Charlotte District Attorney said there was 0 evidence placing Youngsta in the actual car that did the shooting. He had an alibi. He said he was in Durham at the time. So the case died. Youngsta walked. Dolph survived. And somehow Memphis kept spinning. But here's what really happened in the aftermath of all that. The relationship between these 2 men never healed. The shots fired that night in Charlotte, literally and figuratively, left scars that no drop charge could erase. Dolph kept building, kept winning, kept being the independent king that he always said he was. And Youngsta, he kept riding for CMG, kept being the soldier, kept barking. The 2 of them never fully stopped circling each other.
I ain't gonna lie, if this the reason his brothers got took out, man, Black Youngsta a goofy, man, for real though, man. But yeah, man, for dudes to be doing good in the rap game and still be on some street shit, man, that's goofy too. I ain't gonna lie to you.
It was the kind of beef where neither side was ever fully done, even when the music quieted down. Real recognized real, and in Memphis, the real ones knew this wasn't over. Not even close. At 1:05 p.m. on November 17th, 2021, everything changed. Young Dolph pulled up to Makita's Cookies, a bakery in his own neighborhood in Memphis, the kind of spot he supported because he believed in putting money back into the community he came from. He was doing what he always did, moving through the city, being present, being real. 2 men walked in and opened fire. Adolph Thornton Jr., Young Dolph, was pronounced dead. He was 36 years old. He left behind a partner, a family, and one of the most genuine and respected legacies Memphis rap had ever seen.
Rapper Young Dolph was shot and killed at a bakery today. Young Dolph, whose real name is Adolph Robert Thornton Jr., was reportedly buying cookies at this bakery in his hometown when someone drove up and shot him. He was expected to give out turkeys for Thanksgiving on Friday. The county commissioner called his death gut-wrenching.
The whole hip-hop world went into shock. Memphis went into mourning. The internet broke. Tributes poured in from every corner of the culture. This was not just the loss of a rapper. This was the loss of a symbol.
Yeah, man, I ain't gonna lie, man. Rest in peace to Dolph, man. To be honest, man, he was a fearless dude, man, for real, though. And I can relate to that, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, man, being fearless and not scared of nothing, man, don't mean nothing can't happen to you, you know what I'm saying? So even if you ain't scared of nothing, man, you still gotta be careful, for real.
Dolph represented everything about staying independent, staying authentic, staying true to where you came from while never letting the streets define your ceiling. Now, where was Black Youngsta during all of this? He went silent for a minute and people noticed. But here's where it gets crazy. and where Youngsta's downfall started picking up serious speed. Within days of Dolph's murder, Black Youngsta performed at a concert in Dallas. And in that performance, he performed Shake Some, his diss track against Young Dolph, the same man who had just been shot dead in his own neighborhood. The internet went absolutely insane. People couldn't believe it. Even those who knew the history between the two men, even those who understood that beef is real in Memphis streets, the optics were catastrophic. You don't pull out a diss track against a man who just got murdered. That's not a street politics move. That's not loyalty. To most people watching, that looked like something else entirely, something much darker. But Youngsta didn't.
I ain't gonna lie, goofy and incriminating at the same time, you know what I mean? Yeah, man, if that's why Yo Gotti like cut him off and stopped dealing with him like that, man, it makes sense, for real, though. But then him being at Dolph grave site, man, that really was crazy, for real.
Stop there. He dropped a song called I'm Assuming. And the video? The video shows Youngsta walking through a cemetery, stopping at a gravestone. The name on the stone reads Thornton, Young Dolph's government last name, front and center for the camera. The backlash was nuclear, no cap. Fans, peers, artists across the industry. Everyone had something to say. The narrative wrote itself. Black Youngsta was celebrating a dead man. Whether that was the intent or not, it didn't matter. In the court of public opinion, he was convicted instantly. Youngsta tried to defend himself. He went on Instagram and said he came from South Memphis where there's no sympathy and he didn't care what the world thought. He said he wasn't going to act like something he wasn't. And on some level, you can respect a man who doesn't put on a mask. But fam, there's a difference between being real and being reckless. And in that moment, Youngsta couldn't see the line he was crossing. What happened next would define the next chapter of his career. Rumors exploded that Yo Gotti had quietly dropped him from CMG. The blogs ran with it. The internet ran with it. Every outlet was saying that even his own label couldn't defend what he'd done. Gotti eventually got online and called it fake news, said Youngsta was a boss and couldn't be dropped. He showed up on the CMG album Gangsta Art in 2022, but something had shifted. Even if the paperwork said he was still on CMG, the energy had changed, the momentum had changed, the goodwill of the people had been spent. Now here's where people started connecting the dots. Because the Dolph murder wasn't just a random street shooting. What emerged over the next several years painted a picture of premeditated, coordinated violence, and it ran directly through the CMG network that Youngsta had been part of his entire career. 3 men were eventually charged with Young Dolph's murder: Cornelius Smith Jr., Justin Johnson, and Hernandez Govan. Now pay attention to Govan's name, because his connection is the one that matters most to our story. Govan was not just some random street figure. He was a CMG associate, someone tied directly to the label's ecosystem, someone who moved in those circles. According to testimony in the murder trial, Govan was alleged to have ordered the murder of Young Dolph, and he allegedly did so at the direction of Anthony Big Jook Mims. Who is Big Jook? That's Yo Gotti's brother. When that name came out in those courtrooms, the entire rap world had to sit with it. The prosecution laid out the theory clearly. The tension between CMG and Dolph's paper route empire had never been just rap beef. There was a financial and territorial motive running underneath it, and it ultimately ended in murder. In September 2024, one of the triggermen, Cornelius Smith Jr., took the stand and confessed. He testified that Big Jook had placed a $100,000 bounty on Young Dolph's head, that he and Johnson had stalked Dolph for days, knowing he was doing his annual Thanksgiving turkey giveaway, just waiting for the right moment. Smith said they finally caught him at the cookie shop and opened fire. "I wasn't feeling nothing at the time," he said on the stand. "I was just trying to get some money." Let that sit with you for a second.
I ain't gonna lie, man. Following for some days and they ain't spot these dudes following or nothing, man. I ain't gonna lie, man. Dolph was slipping a little bit, man, for real. And yeah, man, when it's up and you with it, man, you gotta be checking your surroundings. You gotta be watching cars that's following and all that too. And yeah, man, I'm from the rich in the Bay, man. I remember war times, man. You gotta be alert, man, for real.
A man was killed over $100,000 split 3 ways. A man who had rejected a label deal years ago. A man whose entire legacy was built on being untouchable by the industry. And they still reached him. Justin Johnson was found guilty on all counts in September 2024 and sentenced to life in prison. Hernandez Govan went to trial in 2025 and was ultimately acquitted, a verdict that shocked Memphis and sent waves through the culture. Now here's the real tea that doesn't get discussed enough. Where does Black Youngsta fit into all of this? Let's be clear. Youngsta was never charged in connection with Dolph's 2021 murder. The man who was charged is Hernandez Govan. The triggermen are Johnson and Smith. There is no indictment against Youngsta. That needs to be stated plainly. But the streets don't operate on indictments. They operate on proximity, on association, on who was in what room at what time. And the fact that Youngsta had been the most visible soldier in the CMG Dolph war for years. The diss tracks, the Instagram threats, the Charlotte shooting arrest meant that when the full picture of Dolph's murder came into focus, Youngsta's name was attached to the shadow of it, whether he wanted it to be or not. People weren't just asking who pulled the trigger. They were asking who made the climate that made the trigger possible. And that question had Black Youngsta's name all over it. But wait, it gets worse. Because while Youngsta was already navigating the fallout of Dolph's death and the growing shadow of the murder trial, his personal life was being carved apart too. On August 18, 2023, at a BP gas station on South Parkway East in Memphis, a man was shot and killed. Reports quickly confirmed what Youngsta's circle already knew. The victim was his brother. Think about that for a second, fam. No matter how hard you are, no matter how many diss tracks you've dropped or how many times you've claimed nothing can touch you, when your brother gets murdered in your city, everything stops. Everything. This was not the first sibling Youngsta had lost to the streets of Memphis. Over the course of his rise, he lost multiple brothers to violence. Multiple. This is a man who has felt that knock on the door more than once, who has sat in hospitals or received phone calls that no human being should have to receive. The irony is brutal, and it is not lost on anyone paying attention. Black Youngsta had spent years being the loudest voice in a beef that ended in murder.
Man.
He dropped diss tracks and walked through a dead man's cemetery on camera.
I ain't gonna lie, man. Can't you imagine being this parent, man? His antics, then they got your other kids took out, but you left with him, though, man. That's crazy, man.
And while he was doing all of that, his own family members were being taken by the same streets he claimed to represent. The streets giveth and the streets taketh away, and Memphis wasn't done taking. People in the comments were showing dolphin emojis on posts about his brother's death. That's how deep the animosity had gotten. No matter how you feel about beef, a man losing his brother should draw some basic human empathy. But Youngsta had burned so much goodwill that even in his most vulnerable moment, a portion of the public couldn't extend it. That's the price of the narrative he built. His music output slowed, his public presence faded, the energy shifted. This was a man who was clearly going through something real, and the world was watching without mercy. Now layer on top of all of this the legal issues that had been following Black Youngsta for years. Because this man was not operating with a clean slate while all of this was unfolding. In 2019, Youngsta and 3 friends were pulled over for running a red light in a GMC Yukon. Officers smelled marijuana. They searched the vehicle. What did they find? 3 pistols and marijuana. Youngsta was hit with felony possession of a prohibited weapon, specifically armor-piercing ammunition. That's not a light charge. That's the kind of charge that follows a man around, shows up every time he goes before a judge. Then in October 2020, during a routine traffic stop in Dallas, cops discovered a handgun between his legs while he was a passenger in a vehicle. He was charged with unlawfully carrying a weapon and booked into Dallas County Jail on a $5,000 bond. Another mark, another entry in the legal record, another moment where Youngsta's relationship with weapons put him in a county jumpsuit. He reportedly rejected a pre-trial diversion program for the Dallas case, betting on himself to beat it outright rather than take a quieter resolution. That case eventually got dismissed in August 2024. But here's what you have to understand about accumulating legal trouble as a rapper, fam. It's not just about jail time. Every arrest is a distraction. Every court date is money spent. Every charge, even ones that get dropped, becomes ammunition for prosecutors if you end up in front of them again. You are constantly fighting on multiple fronts, trying to make music, maintain your brand, manage a label, stay relevant. And you're also paying lawyers, attending hearings, and watching your name get attached to headlines that no publicist can spin into something positive. The weight of that, sustained over years, breaks people down. Not physically, mentally, strategically. It bends the arc of what could have been a legacy. And then came the move that confirmed what many had been speculating for years. Days before the Hernandez Govan murder trial was set to begin in 2025, the trial of the man accused of orchestrating Young Dolph's death, Black Youngsta publicly announced that he was no longer with CMG. Let that timing sink in, gang. Not in a quiet moment, not in some off-season announcement. right before the most explosive trial connected to his circle was about to put everything about CMG, Big Jook, and the Dolph beef back in the headlines. Right before the whole world was going to be watching Memphis and asking questions about who knew what and who was connected to whom. That's not a coincidence. That's a man reading the room and understanding that proximity to this trial, even indirect proximity, was a liability he could no longer afford to hold. Was the split mutual? Was it forced? Had it been building for years behind closed doors? We don't know all the details. What we do know is that the announcement came at a moment that spoke volumes without saying a single word. When you announce your departure from a label right before a murder trial involving that label's associates, you are not doing so by accident. You are creating distance. You are drawing a line. You are saying, as clearly as the streets will allow you to say it, I need to be seen separately from this. The internet didn't miss it. The timing was dissected on every platform. People were connecting the dots. Youngsta's beef with Dolph, the Charlotte shooting, Dolph's murder, the CMG associates charge, the trial incoming, and placing him at the center of a timeline that, while not criminally implicating him, absolutely spoke to the world he had operated in and the cost of that world. His departure from CMG wasn't just the end of a business relationship, it was the closing of a chapter. And for a lot of people watching, it felt like an admission, not of guilt, but of awareness. A man finally acknowledging that the orbit he'd been in had consequences he couldn't outrun forever. Here's something the music industry never fully reckons with. No cap. The streets have a long memory. And hip-hop fans, especially those who have personal connections to the stories being rapped about, they don't forget. When Black Youngsta was at his peak, he had a real following, the kind built on authenticity, on being raw and unfiltered and from somewhere real. Heavy hit because it was real. His energy hit because it was real. People believed in him because he wasn't manufactured. He was Sammy Benson from South Memphis, and he wore that on his chest every single day. But belief is a currency, fam, and Youngsta spin it. The Cemetery video, the diss track performance after Dolph died, the years of open antagonism toward a man who was ultimately murdered. These things didn't just damage his image in the media, they damaged the relationship between him and the very fans who had elevated him in the first place. And then there's the younger generation of Memphis rap, because Memphis kept going after Dolph died. Key Glock, Dolph's cousin and protege, kept building. Paper Route Empire kept putting out music and kept winning. The independent lane that Dolph carved with his refusal to sign with CMG back in 2014, that lane got wider after his death, not narrower. The culture, in many ways, crowned Dolph's legacy as vindication, which meant that everyone who had been publicly against Dolph, the ones who had thrown the most shots, who had been the loudest enemies, found themselves on the wrong side of history. Black Youngsta was the loudest. And in an era where streams are everything and perception drives playlists, being on the wrong side of history is a commercial death sentence just as much as a cultural one. New fans discovering Memphis rap aren't looking for the man who dissed Dolph. They're looking for the man who kept Dolph's legacy alive. And that's not Youngsta. His streaming numbers reflect it. His cultural relevance reflects it. The rooms he gets invited into reflect it. When was the last time Black Youngsta was part of a major cultural moment that wasn't connected to controversy? When was the last time his name trended for his music? That silence is the answer.
Yeah, man, that's a fool with it, man. Yeah, what happened to Black Youngsta, man? And I ain't gonna lie, he was consistent with his music. I ain't gonna lie, even if you like him or not, you can't say he didn't drop consistently, for real, though. But yeah, man, it seemed like he did it to himself, though, man. I remember when he dropped that video at that grave site. I ain't gonna lie, man, I was surprised, for real, though. And yeah, man, I don't know if he was just doing it for entertainment or what, but he was definitely making the block hot, man, for real, though. I think he knew he violated by being so reckless. Possibly lost his brothers behind this stuff too, man. Look like Black Youngsta energy led to a lot of L's, man, for real. And yeah, man, rest in peace, Dolph, man, for real, though. But yeah, man, let me know what y'all think in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe. You watching the Big Bomber TV. Thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting. Until next time. All right.
Bomber TV.